I was just going to go over the PenPeeper app. Um, Here it is here. You can go ahead and we have the penpeeper.com website, and that kind of goes through some of the features and other stuff. And then on GitHub, when you go to it, the releases page, you'll see the most recent listed here, and you can download for whichever operating system you want to use this on. When I open up the app, you have a collection of projects, which I'll start off with none there. In fact, let me go ahead and we'll cover some of these things. So for one, up here on the top, you have some, this is just aesthetics, some different, ooh, that's intense, themes to kind of, change the look and feel of it. I'm gonna stick with the Deep Ocean, kind of like that one. Up here you can import or export projects, so what those will let you do is kind of pick all or particular projects. These could be for different companies or whatever that you're doing these pen tests for, that you want to export, and it'll have you create a password and stuff. It encrypts it and puts it into a single file that can be shared. The version you're currently on is over here. This is how you kind of begin, is to start a new project, give it a name. And then over here, you have your system readiness tool. So it kind of shows some of the various tools and stuff that it's trying to make use of to go ahead and, for scanning and stuff like that for this project that you're going to do. And this, I'm showing it here in Windows, is just because it's the one I currently have next to me at the moment. If I open up, I have it also on, here it is on Mac OS, and here it is on, oops, if I just should type here. So this is on Arch Linux, but it doesn't really matter. I'm supporting, and I've tested on most major Linux distributions here. One of the other things I'll mention just before I start going into the app is that if you're on Linux, since it's very common that most of these are going to be, you have servers where you don't actually have a UI or anything. This also works in console mode, so instead of PenPeeper launching it, directly from the app launcher or anything, if as a console I go in and I use this flag term, what that'll do is it'll open it up here where it's being hosted externally as a web page. So then if I point to that IP address on port 8808, like it says there, press enter, you can see right now I'm actually connected on my Windows computer to the UI that's actually being run off of my Linux machine that I don't need to actually have a desktop environment for. So that's a handy little feature here. And I'm just going to go ahead and temporarily stop that right now. And okay, so we'll delve into this. The first thing that you should kind of do is just go through making sure the system readiness is set up and working. So for Windows and on Linux computers, this is running natively because you've got all of these common tools and stuff are able to download and use natively on those OSs, where on Windows, obviously for most people who do this type of thing, know that lots of these tools don't necessarily run on Windows natively. So if you do want to use the Windows version, you do have to install and set up WSL. You have to have a Linux thing installed. In this case, I'm running Kali Linux here in WSL. I've also tested this just using a Ubuntu build on this computer here too. It'll tell you like WSL if you're on Windows, if it's installed or not. I'm not really going to go over how to install WSL on a Windows computer, how to set that up. There's plenty of other things on the internet for that. But this assumes that you have that going if you're on Windows. You don't have to worry about that on Mac or on any of the Linux distros. Um, but one of the things I wanted to accomplish here was, have a universal tool that kind of worked for meet anyone in whatever environment they prefer. So I'm gonna just show, like for lots of these, I built in a little bit of an auto installer for these. So if I go ahead here, this one's not installed the FUF yet, I can hit install and it's going to go ahead and automatically install that for me. So you can kind of go through the checklist here and kind of make sure that you have all those tools installed. I will say Nmap through WSL does not work all that great. You won't be able to pull back, for instance, MAC address info, stuff like that. So when you actually hit Nmap install from a Windows computer, it's going to, for that one, install it in the Windows environment, a native Nmap install, so that way you get the most out of it. So let's go ahead here. I'm going to hit new project. I'll give it a name. Let's say the company. And when I go into this project, there's a few things here. Currently, I have nothing really set up yet. We have to add devices, and we have these different tabs here. And this is a layout we're kind of supposed to go through left to right to get to the end. The Gather tab is going to be where you collect all of your information about all the devices on the network. The Search tab is where you can kind of hone in, dig through all your results, and flag everything as findings that are of interest. And you can kind of, you don't have to, at that stage, the idea is that you're not really necessarily having to do all the validation and stuff yet. You're just flagging these things of interest. Findings is where it will kind of just show you all the findings that you've found, and you're going to go through and you'll fill out, like basically validate them, and you'll complete them. You'll put in a any sort of evidence you have, recommendation, stuff like that. And then when you go to the report at the end, it already knows all the findings that you found, all the information's been filled in, and you can just add a little bit of information, hit a button to generate the report. Up here we have these two add buttons. So these essentially do the same thing, really. It's just a way of, when you start off, you need to add, a network range or devices, something like that. You have a search button for once you have devices, and you can see all these scanners are grayed out currently. And that's because we haven't added any devices to scan. This is the magic button, so basically what that does is it will go through and perform all of these scans. You can scroll here too to kind of open up for more. And this is an important one because not everything you're going to find is going to be about a specific device on the network. For lots of pen testing, this is going to be, it might be about policies, it might be about like a physical door access and stuff like that. So this is how you can add findings up here for things that are not going to be probed or found on the network here. And then you have your settings. So under the settings, we have our scan. So how many concurrent scans we have. By default, it's set to 3. You can change this. This is how many it's going to do at the same time, simultaneously. How many devices it will sort of be reaching out to and testing at a time. And ping test. So this is really important because especially if you're on a Windows computer and you're using WSL, One of the things that's kind of an aggravation lots of times is configuring that WSL to actually make sure that it's seeing everything on your network. So before people just start, installing it, they're like, WS is installed. Hey, I hit scan or add devices. I'm not getting anything. Just do a ping test. Go in here, make sure that because this is actually doing it not from your Windows computer if you're running the Windows version, but from the WSL that you have installed of Linux. So this is going to make sure it's actually able to talk to the network you're on. VPNs, when you're going across a VPN, is even more involved really at how to set it up and get that going. Once again, I'm not going to go into WSL specifics. And then debug logging. So this, if you enable, it's going to create a debug log, and if you run into any problems or anything, you can enable that, recreate it, and be able to share some of that information that you find to try to troubleshoot later. Okay, let's get back to it. I'm going to go back to the gather screen here, and I could hit either of these add buttons, so let's hit the top one. They're going to be the same thing here. And I'm going to go ahead and just add the local network range, this test environment. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go ahead and hit begin here. And we have, quickly identified a bunch of devices. Now you can see currently the only one that it activates is the Nmap scan by default. And, when I say that, this is a more thorough one where it's actually going to put in those flags and stuff to identify all of the services by names that are running, the ports that are open on each one. It's also going to enable some of those flags to actually probe for headers and banners, stuff like that. That exist, and that will, as soon as that one completes, it'll unlock all these others. And the reason why that happens is because you don't necessarily want all of these scans to run on every single device, because some of them are, more like web specific. So if it doesn't find any ports hosting some sort of web pages and stuff, then it would be pointless to go through it. Or if it doesn't have, Samba or NetBEUI or any of that stuff, then some of these wouldn't really make sense. So it kind of automatically will determine what what you're going to need, and it will do those scans if I decide to hit the magic button or something to automate all of these at once. I will say there's a bit of a difference here for, like, if I switch over quickly to, let's do it from the Mac, for instance. It's just because I already have it open there. If I was to start a new project here, call the company Mac, create. I don't actually even have to hit add device. I can just start off right away with magic button scan. It's going to ask for my password here, because in order to get full results from all these scans, it has to run as administrator. It doesn't save this anywhere. This is only kept for the session, so as soon as you close this, it's not there anymore. The next time you open the app, you'll have to do it every single time. But it does remember it for the session, so you don't have to do it per scan or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead, put that in, and then let's put in my range for the test network, hit OK. And so down here you have your status bar. It automatically went through first, just doing a quick, Nmap, kind of a SN flag to find out which hosts are up for that range. Then it's going to go through, it started the regular Nmap part since I have, as I said, the settings were set to 3 concurrent scans at once. I have the 3 going. There's 23 devices total here that it found on the network, and it's doing them in batches of 3, and it will keep track over how many are completed here. And as soon as Nmap is done, you'll see it'll do like SNMP, Nikto, and Searchsploit at once. They'll stack up. They'll all be doing all these scans at the same time to speed things up. And here's where I'm probably going to jump forward a bit to not make you sit and wait for all this to complete. You do have a little kind of cancel button up here. I will say if you wanted to add, like you can go ahead and hit add device or add again if you wanted to add yet another network range or in particular individual devices to this afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead here now until we have more to look at. All right, so we're going to go ahead and open this up again. And sorry about that there. Um, we have our list of devices here. If I was to click on one, now that's gone through this scan here, you'll see a few things. It's trying to identify some of the operating systems. It won't do the best job for these symbols here to identify them. But all these devices are on the side here. If I wanted to, I can hit search. I could jump to a particular one that way. I can see the host name, IP address, MAC. I can see the operating system, which is all pulling from Nmap of interest. You have your probabilities in order of probabilities. In reality, this one's wrong. It thinks it's Windows 10. It's actually Windows 11. I can see all of the ports that are open on this. And I will say, one of the other things about the scanning that's done here is that lots of it isn't being based off of just the ports. For instance, if I'm doing the FUF, looking for web links or something like that, it'll actually look for ones that have a service with the HTTP inside of it or something, because who knows, what ports these might actually be. So it's a little bit better when identifying off of service and scanning some of these based off of the services, or same thing when I'm looking for telnet, it'll search based off of the service too, other than just focusing on only ports. Flagged items. So here is where, basically if I'm going through this, I see some FUF entries here. When I'm doing this, once again, I can open it up. It's showing me the status, showing me how many sort of words that these addresses pulled back. And so this makes it a little bit more interesting for me to quickly go through and see, if I can see that, like, oh, they all are returning. Sure, maybe they're 200, but they're all exactly the same length. I can expect that probably it's kind of chunk data, or, hitting one of them is not actually going to be anything unique. But I can go in here and I can go peek through those to investigate further. Any sort of Samba findings that are pulled in here. What web? So here I can see that there's, some GitLab running on here. It's trying to highlight certain parts of interest for you. I can also see there's qBittorrent, Nmap vulners flagged, Nmap scripts of interest. So once again, you can minimize, maximize all these. You have some search exploit entries here. So I'm seeing that there. If I realize like this is a different OS, I can click on this and I can reassign it to, something else if I want. And if I go to the scan section here, this is actually all of the raw data. So I could actually open these up and, if I want to look in it, and I can also, go ahead and hit Control F or Command F and open up a find button to look for something and go, searching around for something in particular. And there's a few things I could do here. For one, if there's something in particular in a scan itself, if I wanted to, I could say to flag it as a finding. So I can say that this actually is sort of a finding. Click that button to add it. If I wanted to, this is just to save it. If I want to export this somewhere else, delete it. Those are possible. Add a new scan. So if I hit this, I give the scan a name, and I could paste in stuff. I could insert an image, whatever. So if I want to manually add my own scans from something external or outside of this program, I can go ahead and do that. Import scan is going to be very simple. That's going to be something where I can just give it a name and then go select the scans that I've already done elsewhere to import them into here. I'm going to go back to the details page. So another option here is I can tag it. So I could see, as I mentioned before, I could see in this that it had Q BitTorrent. So I can go to tags. I could say that that's there. I could say like, hey, we have MySQL on here. So I could type MySQL, press enter. I can go through and whatever. I can identify all of these things however I want. Another thing that's can be useful sometimes is if this isn't a company, I might also say like, hey, this is in something like the telecom department where this is located. And this can be useful later because when we go generate a report, if we wanted to, we can also filter our reports per some of these tags. So that way I could export like, oh, here's one for this department to look at, here's one for this department to look at. So if I'm going to split up some of these tasks for different people to have to work on different parts, I could do such a thing if I wanted. I can go ahead and remove the tag if I want. But these are useful for searching for things later. If I want to go ahead, I can go through and go through all these devices and start to look at stuff. If I want to actually flag something, I find something of interest, there's a couple ways of doing it. I can either hit add flag from down here in the flag items, or, if I just have a device already selected, and by the way, you can use arrow keys too to kind of move through these devices. Makes it a little bit quicker sometimes. I have the option up here to, same thing, add a flag. If I do that, there's two kinds. So adds CVE. So if I saw something right off the bat and I know that there's a particular CVE to it, let's do a generic. Just type something in here. Let's just grab one from somewhere. I picked the wrong page, I guess. Here, let's just pick one somewhere. I highlight a CVE. One of the things I could do if I hit add CVE is I could put in my CVE number, confidence level. It doesn't really matter. I can say how sure I am of this or whatever, but really that's going to be on the findings page where we care about this. If I hit search, what this is going to do is it's actually going to reach out to the internet. It's going to pull back all the information already about this device and fill it in for me. And here, I'll go ahead and do that. Let me hit accept. And now you notice when I'm looking at details, if I go down to flagged items, I can already see that this is here. If I hit the little edit button, we have some of this information. We have our evidence, which we can add to it. We have our recommendation we can add to it. We have categories to define this. So I could kind of filter, this is a client side and front end, and it's an insecure local structure, and then the scope. So if you hover any of these types of things, they'll give the little description of what they are. Most people probably already know what these are. But let's just say I picked one here. Then I could update it. I can hit save. So you can go through and start to flag things of interest. Let's move on to the search screen. So search is just a little more interesting way to start looking for stuff, to try to find things. If I want I could try to go by looking at different OSs I find of interest. So I might be seeing like security cameras or door controllers or who knows what else, some really old, outdated OSs. And I could click on them to try to, see all those devices, get a list of them. You have ways of exporting what those are up there. If I hit device info, I can pull back kind of everything that was on that detail screen before quickly there. This one's to jump to that device. If I want to, I can add tags to this, or flag this item. Some of the other ones I can filter by the vendor based off of the MAC addresses, so I can find out who physically is the vendor who made those devices. So here's that Apple laptop, for instance. I can pull that up. That one can be very handy, and not only that, but since lots of times on a company network, you might see lots of you might want to identify a large amount of devices you're seeing at once. You might see 100 UPSs by the same vendor or whatever. Then if I wanted to, I can change the OS for every entry down here, make them all, for instance, a UPS icon, and that could save a little bit of time here. If we want to search by banners, this one you can find a lot of gold in. Since this is actually pulling from all those banners of all these services, it makes it a lot more apparent to find things that I might find interesting, particularly. Well, there's all sorts of things I'm going to find here. This one I can see had some Samba on it. So it's probably got a file share of some sort. And then you can also narrow down by your different types of ones that have results. If I did pick like FUF, for instance, these ones, if I go through, I have this view records, since it's FUF, and it's putting them in order of sort of the status with the most words being returned. And then if you want, I can just go ahead and click on any of these, and it will go ahead and open up in the browser, so I can just take a peek at it quickly. And so you might get some different options for depending on what you're looking at here. That makes more sense for that. Searching by your tags. So here's where you can kind of, when you tag stuff, another way to kind of drill down. Another thing you can do that's helpful is searching for maybe a particular port of interest or service. And if I do it by service, I kind of prefer this one because, like let's say it was SSH or something. This will find results based off of that service name as opposed to necessarily the port that it's on, since once again, lots of times people aren't using the default ports for things. So this is just another way to kind of go through all your results, narrow it down. Once you've got everything kind of flagged, you've dug into stuff, I will say there is an option here. I think I might have it set up on the Mac. Oh, that one's still scanning. I could go over to the little Arch Linux one. And let's see if I happen to have any on this one here. I'll go ahead and I wonder if I have Telnet. Anyway, if there happens to be any, if I could spell here, like Telnet for instance, you can go ahead and it has a built-in Telnet client. And if I just hit, you can type in stuff, hit send, whatever, and see what you get and what you find there. Just another little time saver, since that's something you just frequently have to do to kind of investigate stuff. So now we're going to go to the Findings tab, and by default, what this is going to do is search for, you can say all of your findings, completed findings, incomplete findings, whatever, to kind of narrow stuff down that you find here, I should go back and add a manual finding just so you can see what that looks like too. I'll do that right now. I'll just pick one. And this one had lots of NICTO results and stuff too found on it, but instead of hitting the flag button up here, I'll just hit add down here, do the same thing, add a manual finding. I found a blah, 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 whatever. Fill out my stuff. If it's manual, I have a little more to fill out. I will have to actually go through and fill out some of this stuff, like the attack complexity. So once again, I've kind of given the, when you hover over them, you can see the descriptions. But what this is really doing is, so when it generates your reports later, it's going to automatically know how to categorize these by severity levels, stuff like that. And it's going to even be able to calculate a, oh, here we go. Let's see here. My score along with it based off of these, so I'm actually filling out the real details. I don't want to fill out this stuff yet. I could, if I wanted to, I could just complete all of my documentation in one place. That'd be awesome. Alright, so now we're over here on the Findings tab. And this is where you'll see, by default, you're looking at the incomplete view. So everything from the Gather tab and the Search tab, where you've gone through and you've flagged an item, add a flag to something, it'll end up here. And the idea is that at first you're just adding your findings, and you're not really completing everything. You're not filling in all of the recommendations. Maybe you filled in the evidence up front, maybe you haven't. But the whole idea here is that this is where, by default, you're going to see everything that you haven't completed yet. And you'll see these little tags here, and they kind of tell you what's missing from each of these. So this one just had the evidence and recommendation, for instance. So if I went to the complete missing information button here, you can see the evidence and recommendations aren't filled in. And let me just go through here. So the first one, which just says only desk, I haven't really done anything yet. Nothing's filled in. But if I was to fill this in really quickly, let's just say my evidence, I'll just pick a little photo here again. This guy is the evidence recommendation. Once again, fix it. I don't want to fill out everything. I'm going to go ahead and fill out what these are. So these categories and subcategories, as I mentioned before, this is a way when the report prints out automatically, it's going to kind of group things by these categories and subcategories. And, you know, as you hover over these things, you can kind of see some descriptions if you don't know how to fill these out. But this is to calculate automatically a CVSS score. And we're going to go ahead and do all this. This will automatically, you know, once again, also put in the severities and stuff like that. There's my old calculated score automatically. If I did realize this was a CVE, I could actually convert it here from this manual one. I'm going to go ahead and update it, and what happens, as you can see, it's now disappeared from my incomplete list, and this list is smaller now. So the whole idea is you want to go through and complete all of them so that incomplete has none left. If I want to see my completed, I can go to that, or I can look at all findings. But by default, it's incomplete, and this is just for you to just check off, hey, what am I missing? Once that's finally done, then we can go ahead and jump over to the reports page. Before I do that, though, I did want to clarify something that might have been a little confusing before, because before I started off by just hitting add and then kind of jumping to this magic button. And As I did say too, if you wanted to, you don't even have to hit an add button at all. I could just hit the magic button if I don't have anything yet, and it will ask me for a range or a device or something else, and then it will go through and automatically perform all these different types of scans and stuff, which is great, but maybe you don't want that. So you don't have to do this at all. Some of the other options are if you add, you can add your range. They appear here. Then the Nmap button will become enabled, and if you click the button from up here, it'll go ahead and fill in at least the basic Nmap scans for you, all these devices, if you want the app to do it itself. So that's going to have the flag to, guess the operating system, add all the services, ports, banners, stuff like that, get thrown into there, and then individually you can check off any of these that you want to do. The magic button is just a way to, if you just want to click a button and walk away and have it do everything, awesome. Another thing is that if you just realize afterwards you've done all this, you just want to add one more device, like I could go ahead here, type in like a single one-off device or another range or whatever, but let's say it was just a particular device. You don't really have to go in here, and these are, as I said, to perform a scan on everything. So if I was to hit this button, it's going to be like, do you want to replace these existing scans and just, scan every device all over again? Another option is I can say to skip the devices that were been scanned, so it will only scan ones that you've added after the fact. So all these scans, you can do that after the fact, and you're not going to, redo all of that stuff all over from scratch. Or if you just have a one-off device that you added, if I go to my scans tab, you'll notice I have the buttons here too, and what these do is these will perform those scans just on the particular device that you highlighted. So you don't need to, you can have it just do everything in one big go, or you can individually select what you want. Those are all options for you. The last part here is going to be the Reports tab. Report. And for report, here's filter by tag. So once again, if there's some reason you want to only report out on particular tagged items, you can go ahead and do that. Here's to generate your report. So report header. So for one thing, this is where you can change your header information at the top of the report. You can insert your images, bold, change colors, whatever. This is going to be your header image on the report. Summary graphics. So this is some sort of options you have to insert into your report, what it will sort of look like to just insert a nice little summary graphic and kind of pick one. So I can say like, okay, I kind of like this stacked category bar one. I can go ahead and pick that one. And then you have these certain built-in defaults here, your conclusion, your methodology, your scope, executive summary. So for most people who have already been doing this, they're going to have this information already that they like. Obviously, you're customizing it based off of results and who this is and whatever. People have some templates, but if you don't, it'll give a description. You can hit the help button, see a description of what it's supposed to look like. And if you want to, you could kind of copy, a example here, paste it in, customize it, sort of like get a little idea of what one should probably kind of look like. Same thing, methodology and scope. You can kind of, if you wanted to, copy and paste, alter, but it's going to tell you sort of what these should be looking like. Once you have those filled in, and everything's filled in, then we could generate a nice report. So I can potentially show some of that later. I don't necessarily, I would have to fill it in, and I don't have we'll say non-sensitive data at the moment to show a real report of, but that one's pretty self-explanatory. As soon as you hit the button, it's going to put your template header on top. It's going to have your summary graphic. It's going to have a table of contents. And then it's going to go through by categories. Remember how when you actually went through and had those findings, I had to go in and categorize lots of these things, saying, um, for instance, denial of service, and we have subcategories. So we'll kind of break them down per the categories and then subcategories for groupings. And it's going to have the description, the evidence, and the recommendation, all that stuff in there. And then it's going to fit in those, also your executive summary, uh, scope. Risk rating model, once again, you can change it. By default, it's just kind of showing based off of the CDSS scores, which, as I did mention before, as you fill these in, if they're manual findings, it automatically calculates these. So you could keep that as it is, or you could, once again, get you a copy and paste thing, or you can have your own custom one. All this stuff is editable to you. And that's pretty much it. It's going to generate the way you want it, tell you where to save it. That's a quick run through. So, yeah, try it out, have fun. Let me know if you bump into any problems. Thanks.